The cicadas droned loud in the heavy North Carolina air, a restless chorus that seemed to pulse through the night. Daniel Whitmore sat on the porch of his modest brick house in Raleigh, sipping a lukewarm beer, his eyes fixed on the narrow street where the lampposts flickered as though struggling to stay alive. Something was wrong, he could feel it in his bones. It wasn't the kind of wrong you could put into words. It was the quiet, creeping sort that lived in silences, in the half-smiles of a wife who once laughed freely, in the way she now turned her body ever so slightly when she kissed you goodnight. Lately, Claire had been distant, her phone clutched tighter than before, her excuses sharper, her perfume lingering long after she returned from late shifts. Daniel wasn't a paranoid man. At 38, he had lived through enough, the loss of his father, the grind of building a small HVAC repair business from nothing, to know when suspicion was just fatigue playing tricks. But this wasn't fatigue. It was something darker. Something that woke him up at 2 a.m. and left him staring at the empty side of the bed, wondering if Claire was really working late, or lying in someone else's arms. Tonight, as he sat there with the humid air pressing against his skin, he saw her headlights turn onto their street. He watched carefully. She parked the car, lingered inside for too long, head bowed, fingers moving quickly over her phone screen. Then she exhaled deeply, like someone bracing themselves before stepping onto a stage. When she finally walked toward the porch, her smile was too quick, too practiced. And in that moment, Daniel knew, something inside their marriage was breaking. Life in Raleigh. Raleigh wasn't New York or Los Angeles, it was quieter, friendlier on the surface. Neighbors waved, kids rode bikes on cul-de-sacs, barbecue smoke drifted on weekends. Yet beneath the magnolia trees and church potlucks, life carried its own secrets. Daniel's days were filled with service calls across Wake County. He drove his old Ford truck through subdivisions and trailer parks, fixing busted air conditioners in the thick southern heat. Clients liked him, he was honest, worked hard, and kept his word. That reliability was what Claire once loved most about him. Claire, on the other hand, had started working at Wake Med Hospital as an administrative coordinator. The job gave her purpose, she'd said, after years of staying home with their now teenage daughter, Lily. At first Daniel was proud, he wanted her to feel fulfilled. But with the job came new clothes, late hours, mysterious team dinners, and a glow in her cheeks Daniel hadn't seen in years. He told himself it was just her finding confidence again. But then there were the whispered calls in the hallway, the sudden shower as soon as she got home, the way she never left her phone unattended. Suspicion turned into quiet observation. Daniel began keeping track, times she left, times she returned, the inconsistencies in her stories. It was the small things that hurt most, like when she stopped asking about his day, or when she laughed too hard at a text message, one she never shared with him. The first clue. One Saturday afternoon, while Claire was in the shower, Daniel sat on the edge of their bed staring at her phone on the nightstand. He knew it was wrong. He also knew if he touched it, there would be no turning back. His hands shook as he picked it up, trying to guess the passcode. 4 digits. He tried her birthday. Nothing. Lily's birthday. Nothing. Finally, he tried the month and year of their anniversary, and it unlocked. The messages were there, tucked in between harmless texts from coworkers. A number saved under M. Short, dangerous bursts of intimacy. Can't stop thinking about last night. Same time next week. You looked amazing in that dress. Daniel's chest tightened. His mouth went dry. He scrolled further, his heart pounding so hard he thought Claire might hear it over the running water. There it was, the proof he had feared, wrapped in emojis and unfinished sentences. When the shower stopped, he quickly put the phone back and sat still, staring at the carpet as if nothing had happened. But inside, something shifted forever. The investigation. For weeks, Daniel lived a double life. By day, he fixed HVAC units and chatted with friendly neighbors. By night, he became a detective, piecing together the fragments of his wife's betrayal. He followed her once, after she said she was working late. He parked a block away from the hospital and waited. At 9:15, she emerged, not in scrubs or office wear, but in a low-cut blouse and heels he hadn't seen before. She walked quickly to a silver Lexus where a man about Daniel's age waited. Daniel's hands gripped the steering wheel so hard they ached as he watched his wife slide into the passenger seat, laughing at something the man said. They didn't go to dinner. They drove to a hotel off Capitol Boulevard. Daniel didn't follow them inside. He couldn't. Instead, he sat in his truck with the taste of rust and bile in his mouth, watching the neon vacancy sign flicker against the night sky. That night, he didn't sleep. When Claire returned home after midnight, smelling faintly of cologne that wasn't his, Daniel pretended to be half asleep. She kissed him softly on the cheek and whispered, "Long night." He didn't answer. The confrontation that never came. Daniel thought about confronting her 100 times. Words formed in his mind during quiet dinners, during drives home, during sleepless nights. But every time he looked at her, looked at Lily, he faltered. He loved his daughter more than life itself. The thought of breaking their family apart gutted him. He wanted to scream, to demand answers, to punish Claire for what she was doing. But he also wanted to protect Lily, to shield her from the storm brewing just outside her bedroom door. So he waited. He watched. And each day the silence ate him alive. The breaking point. It was a humid Friday evening when everything finally snapped. Daniel had finished a long day of repairs and stopped at a gas station for a cold drink. As he walked back to his truck, he froze. There was Claire, standing by the silver Lexus, laughing, her hand brushing against the man's arm. They hadn't seen him yet. She looked younger somehow, carefree, like the girl Daniel had fallen in love with years ago. But she wasn't laughing with him anymore. Daniel climbed into his truck and drove home, gripping the wheel until his knuckles turned white. By the time Claire walked through the door that night, he had already made his decision. The reveal. The next morning, he made breakfast like nothing was wrong. Pancakes for Lily, eggs and toast for Claire. They sat together, the image of a normal family. Then Daniel calmly set his fork down and looked Claire in the eye. "I know about him," he said quietly. The color drained from her face. Her fork clattered onto the plate. Lily looked up, confused. "What are you talking about?" Claire whispered. Daniel's voice shook, but he didn't waver. "The hotel. The Lexus. The messages. Don't lie to me anymore." For a long moment, the only sound was the ticking of the kitchen clock. Then Claire began to cry, soft at first, then racking sobs that shook her shoulders. Lily stared between them, tears welling in her own eyes. "Go to your room, sweetheart," Daniel said gently. "Your mom and I need to talk." The fallout. When Lily was gone, Claire finally confessed. The man's name was Michael, an anesthesiologist at the hospital. It had started with innocent lunches, then late-night texts, then nights at the hotel. She claimed she hadn't meant for it to happen, that she still loved Daniel, that she was lost and searching for something she couldn't explain. Daniel listened, stone-faced, while his world burned. "Do you know what you've done to us?" he asked, his voice low and dangerous. "I'm sorry," she sobbed. "I didn't want to hurt you. I didn't want to hurt Lily. But you did." There was no screaming. No plates thrown against the wall. Just the quiet, devastating truth laid bare on their kitchen table. The revenge. Daniel wasn't a man of grand gestures. But he wasn't about to let Claire walk away unscathed. Over the next week, he gathered everything, screenshots of texts, photos of her with Michael, credit card statements showing hotel charges. He contacted a divorce attorney, one known in Raleigh for his ruthless precision. When the papers were served, Claire's face crumbled. She begged for forgiveness, for another chance. But Daniel's heart had hardened. You made your choice, he told her coldly. Now I'm making mine. The divorce was brutal. Daniel fought for custody of Lily, and won. Claire moved into a small apartment near downtown, her reputation at the hospital quietly tarnished by whispers of her affair. Michael, it turned out, was married too. His wife left him, taking their children. Daniel, meanwhile, rebuilt his life piece by piece. It wasn't easy. Nights were still lonely, and the house echoed with the absence of laughter. But he had Lily, and he had his dignity. And every time he drove past that flickering hotel sign on Capitol Boulevard, he reminded himself that betrayal might break you, but it doesn't have to destroy you. Closing scene. One evening months later, Daniel sat again on his porch, the cicadas droning in the warm Carolina night. Lily was inside, doing homework. The air smelled faintly of magnolias, heavy and sweet. For the first time in a long time, Daniel felt peace. Not happiness, not yet, but peace. And beneath the Magnolia Sky, he promised himself one thing: never again would he ignore the silence between words, the spaces where truth hides. Because sometimes, the quietest betrayals are the loudest of all.